Welcome, everybody, to the Tea with Ms McGill Show, episode 62. It is Reed Larson, the star of the show. It is Puka speaking. A very special guest we're excited to get to, a guy who has never left the game of hockey. But before we get to him, a few recent subscribers: Steve Savatos, Kevin Corbett, Robert Zihar, Tim Callanan, Maddie Rewerts, and April Nicola. Be just like them. Give us a follow on Facebook or YouTube, or even if you're a podcaster, a Spotify, smash that like button there. New shirt design. Drop us a comment if you'd like this one. We'll make more, but we got just a limited number that we made just for Reed and I. So, but if you like the new design, please let us know. As always, Spider Heating and Controls, one of our partners. They're your local Bryant dealer and the official heating and cooling company of your Minnesota Wild, specializing in gas, electric, and hydronic heating and cooling systems for new and existing construction, residential and commercial installations available, forced air systems, boilers, heat pumps, mini splits. They are, of course, licensed and bonded. Give Justin a call, 218-999-5957, 218-999-5957. The sun is shining. It's almost air conditioning season, so you want to get on it, get ahead of the curve here, because once you fill up, you kind of fill up. So if you want that air conditioner, give Justin a call today. How are we doing?
Just living the dream, man. We're just a couple of days away from freedom for a little while.
Oh,
the
yes.
Kids are looking forward to freedom. They're looking forward to their summer vacation. Teachers are looking forward to their summer vacation. I'm sure Garbs is looking forward to some of the hallways being a little emptier and they can get a little of their management stuff taken care of when students are off campus. Summer's right around the corner and the weather is gorgeous right now.
Yeah. We got the sun going, so it's great. So, let's bring in our very special guest, Jon Garver. Like I said, a guy who has never left hockey. So if you love hockey, you're going to love this one, because he's going to have hockey stories from A to Z. So Reed, why don't you kick her off?
Yeah, we're thick from the range here, the three of us. They may say I'm a little farther on the west side of the range, but my roots come from over by you guys. You guys are a couple of Chisholm guys, and my family are Mountain Iron, Virginia people, and it just talks hockey in the room right now. But Garbs, everybody knows that this is a hockey podcast, and we talk hockey all the time, especially Northern Minnesota hockey. And just give us just a little summary of how you got into the game and what the start of pre-hockey life as a kid, high school, college, and then into your career real quick.
First off, thanks, guys. Glad to be along with you. Not going to lie, a tad offended that it took till episode 62 for you to dig down deep and bring another Ranger on. So thanks a lot for that. So I'll keep that in mind when I'm sending out Christmas cards. But, how did I get started? It's kind of interesting because my parents kind of looked at me and said, what are you going to do? You're going to do something in the winter. So are you going to play hockey? You're going to play basketball. And obviously growing up in Chisholm, that is basketball country, the one town on the Iron Range that skipped the hockey thing to go to basketball. And that's where we were. And it just didn't appeal to me. I don't know if it was because it was too warm or what, but it didn't appeal to me. And so I gave hockey a try. And from the moment that I started playing, I was hooked. And I was, if I was awake, I was playing it, or I was watching it, or I was listening to it, or whatever the case may be. So I was into it with both feet from the absolute beginning. And like you said, Pook, I've been in it my whole life. I haven't left. I went right from playing into a little bit of coaching and into broadcasting, and then into administration, then back into broadcasting a little bit. So yeah, I'll be turning 49 next month, and I've been in it probably for 45 years now. So from youth hockey into junior into college, I've never left, and I hope I don't have to.
Well, the game is lucky to have you, Garbs.
Yeah. So
it's the other way around, man. I'm lucky to have the game, because if I didn't,
I feel the same way.
I mean, I might still have hair, but
we're all losing the hair.
No, we're not. He's perfectly coiffed over there. He's
not
losing anything.
He's got a special gene that I don't know what it is. It isn't. Hey, it's not the Chisholm gene.
It's more of a pain. I'd rather be.
You know who says that? People who aren't going bald. That's who says that.
True.
Yes.
Well, so what's your earliest memories of being on skates? Was it at the outdoor rink at the Lincoln little rink that they used to have there?
Yeah, that's because obviously right across the street from the house. And, it's funny when you a lot of times when you're doing the hockey thing, you'll get the guys who will say, my dad did this. I learned from my dad. My dad was a swimmer. My dad never put on skates until I started playing hockey. I learned how to skate from my mom. My mother was actually the one who kind of introduced me to the skating piece of it. And I had started skating before I was even put into hockey. But it was at that small outdoor rink at the Lincoln School. And, I took to it right away. I don't know what it was, but I took to it. And then when hockey started and I got to put a stick in my hand, it was, I loved it. I loved everything about it. But the earliest memories probably would be at the Lincoln School, or, as we have marathon road hockey games in the alley behind my house. I mean, whether it was just a couple guys or if there was 20 guys back there, if there were games going on in our alley all the time. So, I mean, not necessarily on skates there, but I have a lot of memories of playing hockey in the alley behind my house.
Awesome. And so do I. I mean, I was a part of some of those games, and I was going to bring that up. That's on the agenda here, was those legendary boot hockey games all day long, and yes. Kids, and, I had a guy tell me, a friend of mine, I moved back to the range in 2007. He said, you know what? I've been living back. He had been there back like 2 or 3 years. He said, I haven't broken up a boot hockey game since I lived back here. Tell me if you do. It's 2023. It doesn't matter. I was living in Hibbing. Now I'm living in Grand Rapids. I haven't broke up a boot hockey game in whatever that is, 15, 16 years. We had so much fun all day long.
All day long. All day long. If it was a day where you didn't have school, it was awesome because you knew you could start at 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. And the parents were great about, we'll just drop them off at Garver's house or the driveway behind your place and hope we don't lose too many sponge pucks underneath the camper or, whoever's house it was. And we would just play all day long. It didn't matter how much snow there was, how cold it was. It didn't matter. We just played all day long. And
that's free daycare for a lot of the kids that were.
It is, but it was also, I think, just where a lot of the love for the game came from me. Yeah. It was just being out there and it was the opportunity to use that to get a little creative with the game and, learn how to handle a puck a little bit and how to handle yourself because things get heated sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, just because you're with those guys on the same team and mites and squirts and everything doesn't mean you're not going to beat the heck out of each other behind somebody's house.
Whacking.
Yeah, I imagine there's two guys knocked around in the alley into the back of somebody's garage door or into one of the dumpsters in the alley. You get lippy, you're going to be.
We cracked the dumpster behind our house.
You what?
We cracked it.
Nice.
Yes. So the dumpster took a beating and it was beautiful. In the game. And I had to answer to my dad because he comes in and goes, "What in the heck did you do?" Because now we got to call the city and get a new dumpster. What did you do? Ooh.
Wasn't me.
It wasn't us. Teenagers, Dad. It was teenagers.
That's awesome.
So Garv was a great hockey player, and as you listen to this interview, we're gonna dig into it. You're gonna realize this. But Laura around town always was. So it was a big kind of big deal, I guess, at our age when rollerblades came out. And you remember your first pair of rollerblades, Garv. And the lore around town was Garv would wear out a set of wheels. You'd rollerblade so much every summer you'd wear out a set of wheels. Tell me about that.
Well, because I wasn't always the greatest skater in the world, so I wanted to try to skate a little more in the summer. And summer ice wasn't always easy to come by up there. So, my dad came home from, I believe, TJ Thomas dropped there, Hot and Cold Sports in Eveleth with a pair of used rollerblades, but they weren't rollerblades. They were basically like hockey skates that you took the toque off the bottom and you put the wheels on, and that's what he came home with, and it just gave me a chance to skate all summer long, and I'd skate all over town, whether I was actually just playing and shooting tennis balls around in the street in front of the house because the alley was a little too beat up for that, or around the path around the lake or going up to my grandpa's house in Lakeview or whatever. I didn't always ride my bike. I rollerbladed, and you're wrong. I would go through probably 2 to 3 sets of wheels and bearings every summer on those things. Just wear them down. I mean, my mother will tell the story how she came home and I had just left a note that said went to Hibbing, and she didn't know that me and a buddy he was on his bike and I was on blades and we were going to Hibbing. And then we had to, 7 miles was quite a bit back then. So we had to call somebody and sheepishly go, yeah, can you come and get us? We need to ride home because we got all the way over here and now we
You
can't
didn't think
back.
about the trip home.
Yeah, no, we didn't.
Get there, but
Yeah, because it's not that far. No, we can do that. And,
Yeah.
I routinely do that now. It's not a big deal as, when I train for the marathons and stuff. But, back then it was like, what did I just do? But it wasn't uncommon for me to rattle through 2-3 sets in the summer.
Sweet.
So kids, there it is. We got a lot of obviously, young athletes that listen. So kids, you don't need all that ice time all summer. You can do it on rollerblades. You want to be as good as Garv? You just heard it. Wear out 3 sets of wheels on your see what your season's like next year. All right. So
Preface that though too with, I skated and everything in the summer, but it wasn't a daily thing. It was, we played baseball too. We did other things. So yeah, the public service announcement to kids, you don't have to be on the ice every single day of the year. You're going to burn yourself out. I've seen too much of that, especially even at the college level now with these kids who have been on the ice every single day. When the Division I offer doesn't come along, they're out. They don't want to do it anymore because they're fried. So do other things, get away from it for a while too. Rant over.
I agree.
100%.
All right. So Garv, you were a part, like you said, some of the most successful Chisholm teams, Bantams, 1989. And you're kind of a hockey historian. I don't know if it's the only youth team to have ever gone to state in Chisholm, but you guys pull it off with 11 skaters. Back then, it's one class, kids. It's not AAA. There's one class. I'm there watching up in Roseau. I have a brother that graduated with Garv. But, tell me about that year. That was such a breakout year.
That was first of all, I think there's been 2 because my senior year of high school, I believe it was the Bantam team. Chisholm hosted the Bantam State Tournament. And so you're automatically in when you are the host of the event. So there technically have been 2, but I will say put an asterisk by that one because we actually earned our trip there. That particular group, it was just, there was something about that group, the fact that we were able to do what we did, like you said, with 11 skaters. And, some of it was you had 11 skaters, but you had 11 really good skaters. And even within that, there were a handful of us that were really, really good hockey players. And when you're getting that much ice time, that's a great thing. And we were able to, everything just kind of clicked. And I remember very clearly kind of when everything did click, because we were always pretty good as we were going up through the ranks, but we were never able to go to that next level. And I can remember very clearly getting to the into the Hibbing tournament that Bantam year, and actually for the first time beating Hibbing, which was a huge deal, and not in a close game either. I mean, it was a beatdown. And then going on and winning that tournament, that was kind of when everything started to click, because after that, we won that tournament. We won a tournament in Cloquet. We won our own tournament. We won a tournament in Duluth, and we went out to Crookston, won that tournament. We were winning games, and we were beating just about everybody that we came across that year. And when we got into, and it was, back then you had your district tournament where, we mowed through that one pretty easily. Then you got to the region tournament, and the region tournament, I'll never forget this. We end up pulling Duluth Stewarts in the first game of that tournament, and they beat us 10-2. I mean, it was one of the worst beatdowns I've ever been a part of. And there usually would be some degree of, the sky is falling when we got to that point. But it didn't happen, and we came back and we won the next couple of games, and we got into the championship game through the back door and had to play Stewarts again, ended up beating them 4-0 to go to the state tournament. And that was just one of the coolest experiences that I ever had, because that group was such a special group of guys, and to be able to go to the state tournament with them was awesome. We didn't fare very well at the state tournament, to be honest with you. We got knocked around pretty good, but that was a great experience. And that group of guys, I always felt kind of deserved better, because we were a good team all the way up. We had a really hard time getting over the hump. And maybe it was because we could have used 1 or 2 more really good players. Again, 11 skaters. If you have a couple more in there, maybe that helps. And maybe that actually helps us when we get to the high school level too. I don't know.
Well, I remember a parent saying, put your history hat on, but I think I was in, so the state tournament was in Roseau, and, you know, the game ends, last game. And I thought I heard one of the parents saying something of the sort, but we outshot every team we played all year. Was that true?
That's a good question. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if it were. Because I want to see, we only lost like 8 or 9 games that year. I'd have to go back and dig through the state tournament program and look at the wins and losses in there. But we only lost our 8 or 9 games that year. And I know we had probably 200 or 300-point scores on that team. So I know we could generate offense, and it wouldn't shock me if we did. I mean, stats were back then.
Yeah.
You know, you got what you got. I mean, there were no official scores. There was no Hockey Hub or anything like that. But if we went back and looked at it, I would not be surprised if we actually did get through that schedule and outshoot everybody.
That's pretty impressive, considering that nowadays Bantam A schedule, now Double A Bantam schedule, they're playing 65 games in a season. You weren't playing 65 games. It was more like 30 some. Like
I would guess we were probably around 40. You know, and then including the state tournament run, we were probably in the 40s.
That actually was a fairly full schedule.
Yes,
a lot
absolutely.
Of played 40 games back then.
No, absolutely it was.
And how different the landscape of hockey. So I'm thinking about, because I'm watching at that state tournament, and, you know, Cloquet's in it, Falls is in it, Roseau's up hosting it, so they're from the north, Chisholm's from the north, Rapids is in the tournament. You know, it wasn't just the city's dominated thing. It was the Great North, and those were the teams you guys were playing all the time. You know, how many times did you see Falls and Cloquet that year?
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I think I know we played Cloquet probably 6 or 7 times, you know, and International Falls, we played them a handful of times. So it's amazing. Yeah, you have all those north teams up in Roseau, and who wins the thing? Richfield. You know, Richfield shows up there and wins, and you know they beat us in the first game of that tournament, and then I know we got pounded pretty good by International Falls in the second game, and then the last game we played up there was against White Bear, and Brian Bonham was on that team, you know, and everybody knows he ends up being Mr. Hockey and the Hobie Baker winner, goes to the NHL. I mean,
the next question is this: is that Richfield team was this too early, or was Darby Hendrickson on that team?
No, his brother Dan was on that team. Darby's a year older than me, so he was already in high school at that
point. He was Mr. Hockey at 91. I wasn't sure how that kind of translated.
And now they don't even have high school hockey.
No, they don't have, yeah.
Isn't that crazy? I mean, it's insane.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. Talk about the changing landscape.
Yeah.
And they're just Chisholm, so there you go.
2 teams that don't exist anymore. Well, combined with Hibbing, right?
Right.
Okay. The legendary brawl. You guys go to Cloquet. I think you beat them in their own tournament, right? And
correct.
I'm walking out and I hear something. I think you walked under the grandstands, or I can't remember, but all of a sudden I come back out and benches are cleared.
Yep.
You remember about that?
I remember we beat them 8-7. And I remember one of their guys didn't take too kindly to losing that game and took some liberties with one of our guys. And again, they've got 18 skaters, we have 11, and didn't matter. There was a response there, and you know, we weren't going to put up with it. You know, it was just
at the barn,
the way that team was all year long.
Yeah, the old barn, Langenbrunner, Rick Morozic. Was there an Erickson that played at school?
Yeah, there was a Kyle Erickson played on that team.
Yeah, I mean they could play. I mean
they were good. They were good. I mean, you had NHL players on that team.
Dutch Barrett, goalie?
Dutch Barrett was the goaltender, correct?
Yeah,
correct.
They had talent too. Well, of course you guys did too. So that was a legendary game. Now I want to move into high school. You played in one of the most legendary games at the Memorial Building, I think, in playoff action. Double overtime. This is when you were a junior, 1991, against Grand Rapids squad with Olam, Fairchild, Kuzi.
Yep.
What do you remember? And being the historian, how many Chisholm pipes and crossbars in that game?
I can tell you, I remember a lot. I remember that one pretty vividly. I remember Kirk Nielsen scored twice. Kirk Nielsen went to the NHL, played for Boston, played at Harvard. He scored twice to put them up 2-0. Bayshock scored to make it 2-1. 9 seconds left in the second period, I scored to tie it. And then nothing in overtime, nothing in double overtime. And Matt Blade scores the game-winning goal. And it's I'm on the bench. It happened at this end. He's about the hash marks. He shoots, it goes between Sean Oll's pads. Matt Blade takes his stick and throws it in the stands, and it's absolute pandemonium. And I'm not sure I've ever been as deflated after a loss, because we outshot them in that game. And they had late in the season brought in sophomore Graham Geisler to play goalie. And I'd have to go back and read the scrapbook and see, but he had to have made somewhere between 40 and 50 saves in that game. And you couple that
at the end of the year, Garv.
he was, and he made a ton of saves in that game. And we hit, I want to say 4 or 5 posts, because I hit 2 of them. And I hit 1 in each overtime. And we probably hit about 4 or 5 posts. Now, that was a really good hockey team Grand Rapids had, make no mistake.
Well, they went on to state.
Yeah, they went to the state
They
tournament.
actually weren't in that year. They went on to state, but looking at the range that particular year in 1991, Rapids was not the team at the top of the ticker at the beginning of the year. Virginia was unreal that year.
Virginia was really, really good.
Joe Tamminen and all of those guys.
Joe Tamminen, Brent Lampa, Garrett Plotnick. Yeah, they
were. I think they beat Rapids earlier in the year by a big margin.
Well, they did. Tamminen.
Yes.
They beat Rapids, and then later in the year, eventually, I believe that's who they beat in the finals.
It was, yeah, because Virginia beat Greenway.
Yep.
And then Grand Rapids beat us to go to the section final that year. Last year that it was one class.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were not at the top of the ladder at the beginning of the year, but by the end they were.
I will not talk about what happened to Grand Rapids at the state tournament in the semifinal game. Bill Murray beat them 11-1. God,
I was there. I know. I saw it. And I remember looking at base shot going, God, we could have done that.
Well, that's again, sometimes that's what you get into. Graham Geisler was unreal at his time, but when you got a sophomore goalie that goes into the state tournament, he does a great job in the first round. And then the second round, he plays against Hill Murray. And I don't know, maybe the youth got to him as a sophomore goalie, but 11 of them made it to the back of the net. I don't know how many made it before they pulled him and put the other guy in, but
yeah, I have no idea how many that was, but that's just one of those where you go, man, I could have been here and been beaten 11-1.
Yep.
Well, so I stand corrected. Triple overtime game, but I was there. It was fantastic. I remember even the cheerleaders stopped cheering. They wanted to watch the game. It was
and you know what? You're playing that game in Hibbing, the 5,000 seat building, and the place is absolutely packed. And what an incredible atmosphere. You know, it was really a fun atmosphere, and it was for us. I think, take a step back a year to my sophomore year when Pat Geyer was still the head coach, and we got off to a really, really good start that year. I was out. I broke my ankle in the first practice, so I didn't even play the first half of the year. But we got off to a really, really good start. And I can remember the Duluth News Tribune doing a story with the headline, "Winner with a capital W versus winner with a small w." Grand Rapids was the capital. We were the lowercase w. And leading up to this big game, because we only played them once each year, it was a 4-point game. It was at the IRA, and they beat us 10-0. And it's like, oh, okay. So I guess the lowercase w was right. And so then to be able to go from that to a year later with a lot of the same guys to, a triple overtime game like that, it for a short time, it validated us a little bit, and it validated our program a little bit.
That sure did.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, like I said, fantastic game. All right, real quick word here from our friends over at the Rink Sports Bar and Grill, just down from the Hockey Hall of Fame over in Eveleth. So when you're in the Quad Cities, you need a cocktail, you need lunch, you need supper. Friday fish fry, the Rink Sports Bar and Grill is the place to go. We've talked about their breakout rooms. Spring sports are going to be coming to an end soon. So if you're looking for a place to have your banquet, give Michelle a call, 248-8582. Daily specials, hockey themed establishment. It's a pretty cool place. I'm sure we'll be back there this summer, do some shows from there, but the Rink Sports Bar and Grill over in Eveleth. All right.
Have the Mushroom Swiss Burger. It's good.
Here you go. There it is.
Love it.
All right. So let's move on to your senior year. So you become a part of one of the most prolific, probably, well, again, you're the hockey historian, one of the most prolific scoring lines in the state of Minnesota in the 91-92 year. even you were talking about the News Tribune. Well, I remember WDIO coming up and doing a feature on you guys. You, Chad Vukic, Jamie Janicic. It was fun to watch, I got to admit.
Yeah, it was great playing with those guys. It was fun. And I think that was a product of all those years playing together. And everything just came together for that year. And we complemented each other unbelievably well, because we all played a little bit different style. You know, I was a little more of a power forward, and I wanted to shoot the puck all the time, and I wanted to be a goal scorer. And Jamie was a really good setup guy, and he brought a lot of speed to that group. Vuk was the digger and the glue of that line. You know, he was the one that just brought out the best in both of us. And you know, when coach put the three of us together, because we hadn't played together and until we got to that year, and he put the three of us together, and it was like, wow, there's something here. And from the get-go, it was just really special playing with those guys. I again couldn't get it over the hump. Maybe we could have used a couple more guys there that year, but we started scoring in game one in Virginia, and we just kept scoring all the way through to the end. And you know, it was dangerous, because if you could shut that group down, then you shut down our whole team, you know, in essence. But at the end of the day, I know it sounds braggy, but the three of us played very well together. And when we were on the ice together, we made things happen. We scored goals.
Awesome.
So what were the point totals? Do you know roughly? I mean, all three of you over 100 and a 20 back then, what, 22-ish high school hockey?
We were definitely were not over 100. Not in high school. Our regular seasons were 22 games. I think Jamie had 70 points, and he was the top, and I had 63, and I think Vuk had 62. You know, so pretty good point totals.
Solid. Yeah, pretty solid.
You know, through 25 games, because we had 3 playoff games in there too. So yeah, it's 25 games. You got Jamie averaging almost 3 points a game. You know, I mean, some of that was inflated when you're playing some opponents that weren't quite as good as we were. But yeah, there was definitely a magic when the three of us played together that year, and it was so much fun. And I really wish that group could have had the chance to go down and play in St. Paul, because we would have done just fine if we would have got out of that tournament, but didn't work out that way. And frankly, us in Greenway that year was the state championship game. And they got
tell us about that. So you made semifinals, triple overtime your junior year. You make it to the finals at the Memorial Building your senior year versus Pat Geyer is now coaching, not you, but coaching Greenway. Yeah, I mean, they had talent too. Antone, Steffens. I mean,
no, they were a really good team. You know, Mike Veckers was on that team. Jason Koski was one of the best goalies up there at that time. That was a good team. And we beat them in their building in the regular season. They beat us in our building in the regular season. So they were absolutely no slouch. And that's another one of those games that I remember so vividly, because about 8 minutes in, we're going, oh my God, we're going to win this thing. We're going to win this thing. Because I scored, I think, a minute and a half in. And then we added 2 more within the first 7 or 8 minutes. We were up 3-0 after the first period. And we're flying high. And then they just kind of slowly started chipping away, took the lead on us in the second period, and they got one in the third to kind of salt it away. And I've never been more crushed by a loss than I was by that one. You know, that was absolutely crushing, because we truly thought we were the best team. We truly thought we were going to win that game, and that didn't happen. And then you come off the ice, and there's that realization that I'm never going to play hockey with these guys again. I'm never going to be in this moment with this group of guys. I mean, coaches always say, you know, a season ends, and, you know, this team as it is right now will never be together again. And you don't realize that until it truly happens, you know, because then life happens and people go their separate ways, and you can come back and maybe 5 of you are back to play an alumni game or something like that. But that moment, knowing that you were never going to play with those guys again, was just crushing. and knowing that you were going to have to see half that Greenway team in baseball in a couple of weeks, even worse.
Yep.
Because at that time they were an absolute powerhouse in baseball.
Well, they were.
Absolute powerhouse. And it gave me a little bit of pride knowing that, yeah, we went ahead and beat them when we got a chance to play against them. So I guess I'll take that.
Well, you didn't stop skating that year because back then, a game called the Maroon and Gold.
Correct. You did some homework, man.
Yeah. Oh God, I said I've been looking for this. So that was it's grade 8 now. Is that what they call
It's
it?
the grade 8 now.
It's
Yeah.
grade 8. But back then it was just 2 teams, the Maroon and Gold.
Correct.
Chicago Showcase. Tell us about your experience there.
That was a blast. That was an absolute blast because all of a sudden you're going from you've got the best players in the state all in that one group. And you thought it was really cool because you were getting out of school for a week because you practiced for an entire week. And they hold us up in the old Sawmill Hotel in Grand Rapids, and you practiced. And you had your 2 teams. Your Metro team and your everybody else team. And so you've got these 40 hockey players running around the hotel and hanging out and, really creating a cool bond with all these different guys that you'd played against for who knows how long. I mean, I mentioned Brian Bonnen's name, and you sit there and play against him in a consolation game at a Bantam State tournament, and 3 years later you're sitting at the pool with them, or you're playing on the mini golf course that's in there with them and having breakfast with them and everything. That was an awesome experience. The grade 8 is cool, but this was way cooler because it was fewer players, it was less diluted, and frankly, you had the best players in the state. Yeah. And Jamie and I fortunately we got picked and we got to go, and we're the only 2 Chisholm guys that ever got to play in that thing, and it was awesome. It was just an awesome experience. And then from there, they pluck 20 of those guys and take us down to the Chicago Showcase, which at the time was kind of like the high school national championship tournament. And totally shocked that I was picked to play on that group. But that was an absolute blast going down there too, because you're with all these guys, you're on the bus, and I mean, there was at least 2 NHL guys on that team, and can't count how many guys were Division I. I mean, most of that group were Division I players. Yeah. I was one of the few that didn't quite hack it at that level, but what an amazing group to be able to be a part of, and you learn so much playing with guys that are that good. Yeah. And even the opponents you're playing against, there was NHL guys that we played against in that crew too, or in that tournament too. So that was just an amazing stretch for me personally, to be able to have the season that I did and go and play in those events, because that stuff doesn't come around every day. And if I could go back, I just wish I would have enjoyed it a little bit more, because at the time you're wrapped up in it and you don't take a step back and take it all in. But I didn't do that, and I wish I would have.
That's the wisdom that comes with age, Garv.
It definitely is. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Reed. It's stuff that you don't think about at the time, because you just think, oh, there's more games. Yeah, I'm going to go on to the next level. I'm just going to keep playing. Things are just going to keep happening, and then eventually you get to the day where it doesn't. But you look back on it and go, that was really cool. But I wish I could have enjoyed it just a little bit more.
Oh, this is good stuff. Hammer the like button. All right, a quick word from our friends over at Iron Range Apparel in the Thunderbird Mall, your official store for the ODR apparel line. All that swag, we don't have any on today. Well, we got the hat on today, but baseball caps, winter caps, t-shirts, sweatshirts, jerseys. The Richters over there have it going on. I call it the gift buyer's paradise. So if you're looking for something, Father's Day is going to be coming up around the corner here. You're looking for something for that special somebody, head over to Iron Range Apparel in the Thunderbird Mall in Virginia. All right. So you move on from high school, you get into the USHL. We're going to have to take a quick break here in just a little bit. So should we just take a break?
Yeah, let's, I'm just going to do a little like this we'll stop it for a second.
Take a quick break. We'll be right back.
What do you think? Slappy shoddy.
Hey y'all, just wanted to do a real quick run through here at the Rink Sports Bar and Grill in Eveleth. Wanted to kind of show you the place, another bar there. Get your game on. Pool there. I just want to show you some. Look at this. Aurora Hoyt Lakes. When's the last time you saw Aurora Hoyt Lakes or a Hoyt Lakes jersey like that? Mountain Iron. Chisholm
Gilbert. Pretty cool. TJ Thomas, you all know TJ, the legend from here in Evelyn. Where do you think TJ comes in as a beer when he's home? He comes right here to the Rink Sports Bar and Grill, even the old Iron Rangers jersey. So when you're in the Quad Cities, this is the place to be. The Rink Sports Bar and Grill, right down from the Hockey Hall of Fame, just off Highway 53. Come pay him a visit.
All right, and we are back on the Tea with Ms McGill show. Thanks for joining us. All right, so we're kind of just got through Garv's high school years. So then it's time to move on to the U.S. League. And, you go down and, of course, I did watch you play a game there, and you had a pretty famous or pretty explosive hockey player that you as a line mate when you were in Waterloo.
I did. Yeah, I didn't start there. I started actually in Sioux City, the smallest rink ever. Coming from Chisholm, which is a small barn, Sioux City, the smallest barn I've ever been in. Probably the reason I wanted to go there was because I was a big lumbering winger at that point, and big wasn't my friend.
Describe the rink for the listeners, because I've played there.
The rink in Sioux City. Think of it this way:
the old rink. Yeah, because they built a new one. I heard, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. All the rinks that I played in when I was in the USHL are all gone now.
Okay.
So, but the rink in Sioux City, a standard NHL rink is 200 feet by 85 feet, and the rink in Sioux City was 169 feet, so 31 feet shorter. And 70 feet wide, 15 feet narrower. And it sat about 1,500, 2,000 people, very steep. And it had this huge Wurlitzer organ that blared during games. And it had a little balcony up at one end and a beer garden down below. And it was everything you would expect a junior hockey building to be. And when the fans in Western Iowa were wild about it. One of the coolest experiences was my first home game there, and because the building was packed, and we were playing Waterloo, actually, ironically, and the building was just packed, and our locker room is upstairs, so you have to come down a flight of stairs, get to the stage level, and come down another flight of stairs to get to the ice. And they turn all the lights off. You can't see a thing, and so you're kind of like grabbing walls on the way down to make sure you don't topple down the steps. Well, you hear the team on the other side of the stage falling down the steps, which was awesome. And then they go on the ice because they didn't do the standard introductions back then where you introduced everybody and they skated out and all that. So they just come out and they go to the visitors bench, and we've got the lights off, and then lasers start going and spotlights start going and all that. And you can hear the crowd getting into it, and there, the 2,000 people that were in there, and probably helped along a little bit by the libations that were legally sold in the facilities down there. So yeah, it was an amazing experience to play the first home game in that building. Lasted there for, it wasn't the best experience, and I was just looking forward to getting out. And then right before Christmas, I got traded to Waterloo, and 2 days later, I'm playing on a line with Jason Blake, who played 1,000 games in the NHL.
Oh, tough deal.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's hands down the best player I have ever played with. And he was at a different level even then. I mean, he scored 100 points, 50 goals, 50 assists our second year in Waterloo in 48 games.
His kid's not that bad either.
Yeah, his kid's not bad either.
No, his kid's real good.
Are you still in touch with him at all?
Yeah, we swap messages every now and then. He's a little harder to get a hold of than a lot of the guys that we played with, because we've got a that's the good thing about technology is you get the Facebook groups and the text groups and all that stuff, and he'll duck in and make a comment and then duck out, and you don't get him in there for a whole lot of stuff. But just phenomenal hockey player, phenomenal at a completely different level than the rest of us. And it's amazing that he took the road less traveled, because he wasn't a scholarship player out of high school and had to go to the USHL, undrafted as an NHL guy.
No maroon and gold game either, right?
Nope, no maroon and gold game either. I mean, he took the road less traveled, and he played his 2 years in Waterloo and didn't end up going to a big time school. I mean, he started at Ferris State.
Remember that.
And then back then had to transfer, had to sit out a year. So he played 1 year at Ferris State, was CCHA Rookie of the Year, sat out a year, then became an All-American at North Dakota and is in their Hall of Fame now. But he's far and away the absolute best player that I've ever played with. You knew he was special from the get-go, and he made me a better hockey player. There's no doubt about that.
Well, and he's playing in an era when the NHL, the Eric Lindros get big area. What's he, 5'10"?
Not even.
Not even?
Not even.
60?
Soaking
Yeah,
wet
he was a little thicker, so he was probably in the 175 range, I would guess.
with his
But you know, his biggest asset was his skating. He could fly.
scoop.
Yeah.
He could absolutely fly. He was tougher than you think. He wasn't afraid to drop the gloves and fight when he had to. And he had some toughness, but his hockey IQ is off the charts.
Well, not only makes the NHL, but makes the All-Star game, what, like 06, 07? I remember seeing
Yeah, I mean, he was a 40 goal guy.
Yeah.
You know, he scored 40 goals with the Islanders that one year, played in the All-Star game, played in the Olympics. I mean, he had a real nice career.
See, kids,
Real nice career.
you don't make it off the get-go, don't give up. I think it's a 175-year guy goes and tears up the USHL.
Right.
So, all right, well, I got us through kind of Garv's youth career. Rita will take over from here.
Well, this has got to be the most exciting part of the conversation once I shift gears to where Garv's and I have a few things in common. So after Waterloo, Garv's makes the decision, probably one of the best decisions aside from marrying his wife and having a child, makes the decision to play for the University of Wisconsin Superior.
Well,
And you had a decision before that, correct?
correct.
What would happen first?
What happened first, I went to the University of North Dakota. I started
Yes.
there. And when I was done playing in Waterloo, I went to North Dakota with I had the D1 dream like everybody else did. There was no money there. I was a walk-on. That summer, the head coach gets fired because I was recruited to walk on there by Gino Gasparini, and he gets let go. And they hired Dean Blaze. Gino had a little different player that he liked. He liked bigger guys. He liked rugged guys. And that was the kind of game at the time that I was playing. Mm-hmm. Dean comes in and he is all about speed. And that is nowhere near the kind of game that I can play. So, I
see this philosophy that you and I are on the same boat.
Yeah. I was never fleet of foot by any means. And so I tried like hell in the going through camp and everything that, I gave it everything I had. I popped a couple goals in those games and everything, but I just didn't have the foot speed. I just wasn't a skater. And so that wasn't going to work. And he said, I've got some connections at Bemidji State and a few other places, so why don't you go take a look at those places? And I made my three visits I went to. I stopped down and I went to St. John's and checked out campus there. The assistant coach was a good friend of mine. John Harrington was a friend of mine. So I went and checked that out and I liked it, but one, they played games at the National Hockey Center. Again, large ice sheet, not my friend. And two, Ma and Pa Garv kind of looked at things and said, I don't know where you think we're going to get this kind of money. So that was kind of the end of the line on the whole St. John's thing. I checked up Bemidji State. It just didn't feel right. And one of my friends that I played junior with, who was going to be he started at Anchorage, transferred to Mankato, transferred to North Dakota, and then he was going to go and check out Superior. So I just tagged along with him and got on campus, loved it. A couple guys that I had played with before were here already and had a connection there and just thought, this might be a really good place to go. My junior coach called Coach Nelson because he played for Coach. And so he called him and said, give the kid a shot. And so here I was, and I made the transfer at Christmas and don't regret anything about it. It was the single greatest decision, aside from marrying my wife, the single greatest decision that I made.
100% couldn't. I can't argue that for you or for me either. Again, I'll put the plug in there for the wife. That's the best decision I ever made. But
correct.
The next best decision was the idea and plan the same thing happened to me. Garv's, that it was a semester at UMD and I didn't make the team as a walk-on. Boom, I crossed the bridge over, take a look at Superior in a conversation. It took one conversation with Steve Nelson and Dan Stauber and I was ready and locked and loaded. And so you had your 4 years at UWS.
3.5 technically.
Ish. Yeah. You had to wait a semester and then come on over as well. And, this was during the prime time of when things are really rolling at UWS, where Steve Nelson has built this program into a powerhouse nationally, where UWS is in the national tournament back to back years.
Right.
Talk about those 3 years of playing for Steve Nelson and your experiences playing in the Frozen Fours, the D3 Frozen Fours, and just your experience of playing as a Yellow Jacket for Steve Nelson.
Yeah, I owe so much to Steve, and I've told him this, that there's no way I can repay him. Because he gave me that opportunity when he didn't have to. He's halfway through a season. They're coming off their first trip to a national championship game the year before. He's got his team off to an incredible start in 94, 95. And in walks me. And he didn't have to let me walk in at that time. He could have said, yeah, you can try out in the fall, but I'm not taking you now. And he let me come in. And then he gave me a completely unexpected opportunity. It's a funny story. Because I got here, I started practicing and everything, and I wasn't in the lineup, and that's fine. I wasn't expecting to be in the lineup. And so it was a Friday night. We were playing River Falls. It was the first home game since I had been here. And we didn't have to be at the rink until 6:00. So I'm hanging out at home, watching TV, not really paying attention to anything. Phone rings. There are no cell phones yet. We didn't have caller ID. I'm not getting up. So I didn't get up and answer the phone. And then phone rings again about a minute later. Still didn't get up. Phone rings again. Okay. Finally, the fourth time it rang, I got up and I answered, and it was Coach. And he says to me, hey, can you play tonight? And I'm like, I guess.
Yeah.
And he says, do you want to play or not? I mean, he's very matter of fact.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to play or not? And I'm like, yeah, I'd love to play. I'd love to. Get to the rink. Oh, okay. So trying to fire myself into some really wrinkled dress clothes and hop in the Bronco, and away I go, and get to the rink, and just couldn't believe what a whirlwind. I didn't even have time to call my parents, because I had told them I wasn't playing. So I didn't even have time to call my parents. And I can remember getting home that night and having a message from my dad, because he had been driving home from work. He worked in Duluth, and he was driving back up to Chisholm, and he was flipping through radio stations and came across a hockey game and just tuned it in. And then he heard my name, and he was so ticked off at me. So he calls and leaves me this message about, what the hell is wrong with you? And you don't tell your parents you're playing. So I had to explain to them, I didn't know. And I didn't have time. I threw the phone down, jumped in a suit, and ran out of the house. So they were there they were able to come down the next night and see game 2, but they were awfully ticked off that I didn't let them know that I was playing game number 1 that night, and come running into the building. And, all of a sudden the new guy, who a little bit of survivor's guilt there, because there were guys that were with that team all year long that don't get in the lineup. And then the new guy shows up after practicing for a week, and he gets this opportunity. And I guess I made enough of an impression, because I didn't leave the lineup the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And was fortunate to be able to go and play in a Final Four that year. So, Steve took a chance on me that way, and there's no way I can repay him for that, because he definitely did not have to do that. And that particular team, there was some incredible hockey players in there. Back then, they had it was called the Shrine Game, the East-West Shrine Game, where they would have the Division I guys from the East, the All-Stars basically playing the Division I All-Stars from the West. And we had a guy on that team that was so good, they picked him to go and play. And so that was a special team. That was a really good team that I thought had a shot to win a national championship. And frankly, if that group wins it the year before, when they got to that first one, we probably win 3 or 4 more than we currently have here.
Mm-hmm.
And so that team was really good. And then we graduated a bunch of guys, so nobody expected anything out of us my sophomore year. And we didn't start off well. and we got mauled by St. Norbert in the middle of the season. But by the end of the year, we were playing our best hockey. We knock off Bemidji in the tournament, and the next thing you know, we get an at-large bid, and 2 weeks later, we're in the Final Four again. And then getting to my junior year, that was the team that I thought that was the best team I ever played on, and that crew I really thought was going to win a national championship. The only time I got to a national title game, and unfortunately, again, didn't get it done. We lost 3-2 to Middlebury in their building. If we play them anywhere else, I think we beat them, but that was a tough draw for us, but really good team, really, really good teams. And every one of those teams was tremendous to be part of.
So 4 seasons there, like you said, you came in the second half of the freshman year, played that year. So you essentially 3.5 years, but 4 where you got to play the postseason. How many of those of the 4 did you make it to the Frozen Four, the NCAA tournament?
3 of them. My first 3.
The first
my senior year, we lost an awful lot from that squad that finished second in the country the year before. In my senior year, we had a really good group of young guys. That was the Jeff Glowas of the world, and Brian Greisen was in that group.
Yep.
They were really good, but they weren't quite ready for that yet.
Yeah.
And it took them a year to get their feet wet with everything. And that was the difference my senior year. Plus we were so young. I was the only senior. We didn't have any upperclassmen on that team. So that was
to the later part of your career, Garves. Now your senior year and all these guys are freshmen. And these are guys that were seniors when I came in as a sophomore. Yeah. So I'm kind of at the back end, and you finished up. But after you were done playing, there must have been things that were happening while you were there in your education where you started to dip into media. How did you get your fingers into working with John Munson and working with the radio while you were still a player?
Yeah, that's a good question. I changed my major 3 times. I was that guy. I changed my major 3 times and still got out in 4 years. So it is possible. As long as you change it in the right direction where you can carry enough classes over.
Correct.
And I was a sports management major, and one of my courses obviously was working in writing, journalism. Mm-hmm. And I enjoyed that. I did. And I always had. I mean, I was always, even growing up, I was big on, I read the sports page every day, and I just devoured statistics. I loved knowing that stuff. And along with that, I listened to sports on the radio. I mean, it was a different era. Not every game was on TV. It was a treat if the Minnesota North Stars were on TV, and it was a big deal to be able to watch them on cable and see the commercials for Chisholm Sports Shop on during the intermissions, and get to see Bill Petrangelo and Craig Boyle in those commercials.
Yeah.
I'm name dropping the Chisholm guys on that.
Great.
But it was a different time back then. So I consumed a lot of my sports on the radio.
Yeah.
And I was always fascinated by that. And I always enjoyed that. And I always thought that would be so much fun to be able to do for a living. And so getting into college, I didn't really touch the radio piece at all, but I was into the writing, and I wrote for the school paper and that kind of stuff. And so at the time, I still thought I wanted to get into coaching. I had a coaching minor, and I thought that's the direction I was going to go. And at that time, a lot of coaching positions were asking you for a master's degree. And so I thought, well, done playing, can probably stay in and help Steve out a little bit and get my master's degree and start to go in that direction. So that's what I did. And fast forward to October, this would have been 1998. And we were on the ice doing practice and everything. And we get done with practice and we go to coach's office afterward. And, because we just got dressed in his office for practice, and we're sitting there and the phone rings, and it was John Munson from KUWS. And the conversation was kind of like, in my best Steve Nelson voice, Muntz, what? Yeah, we got it. Okay. And he hung up the phone, and he looks at me and says, "You're on the radio tomorrow." And I was kind of like, what? And the conversation was Muntz needed a color guy,
Yeah.
And so he asked if he knew anyone that was going to do it, and Steve decided it was me.
Yeah.
And so,
Pushed you in there.
okay.
And you
I'll
listen
get-
when Steve Nelson tells you what to do. You listen.
Yes, you do what he tells you to do. So I did. And I went up there, and it was, I was just a duck in the water then. It was natural. And I enjoyed the analytical part of it, because again, I was a stats guy. I enjoyed that part of it in doing the analysis. And then fast forward again to February, and Jon says, I got a problem coming up here. I'm in a play, and I'm going to miss games. I'm like, oh, okay. And he said, so I want you to work with Brad, who was our basketball guy at the station at the time. And he said, I want you to work with Brad and, kind of walk him through this. He's going to come to the game on Tuesday with us. I'm going to give him a period and, see how he does. Well, he got the period and he couldn't do it. He struggled. And so that was a Tuesday game. And then we were home against Bemidji on Friday. I know the date, February 2nd, 1999. And I went into Jon's office that day and I just said, look, if Brad struggles, do you mind if I give it a shot? And he says, no, feel free. And so Brad does the first period, and it's just, it was a dumpster inferno. It wasn't even a fire. It was just an inferno. Like it was a dumpster factory, and all of them were burning. And he'll tell you this too. It was awful. And so we get to the end of the first period, and I said, I'm going to take a crack at this in the second period. He just goes, oh, thank God. I can't do hockey. I'm not a hockey guy. And
Rest is history.
it was, yeah, it was natural. It was natural. And in that instant, it was just, holy cow. I think I'm better at this than I ever was as a player. And this was every time I listened to Al Shaver do a North Stars game when I was a kid on the radio. And this is me now. And I love this. And
I think
so
it's one of those professions, Garves, that it's one of those things where you know and you feel it when you have a knack for it. And
yep.
It's one of those things that I had a similar story, is where I was a healthy scratch for a couple of games, and John Munson says, hey, get your butt up here. I need someone. And that was shortly after you, a few years later, when he was pulling players into talk. Right. And I enjoyed doing it so much where it's like it came natural, and you just get a love for it. And
you do. And it for me, it was,
you're good at it or you're not, one or the other. And
I mean, you can definitely learn it, but there's certain things that have to be just ingrained in you. And
well, that's side story too, Puka, that
I have that.
When I was coaching in Virginia and when I was down in Wilmer for, I don't know, what is it, Garbs, about 6-7 years in a row, I was making an effort to come up and on home opener every weekend. I would be Garv's color guy, at least home opener for the Yellow Jackets. I don't know, it's 5 or 6, 7 years in a row.
Yeah, we did it for a handful of years.
And life got busy, and I wasn't able to do that when I moved to Rapids, but I think we might have to rekindle that at some point in time.
Sounds a good idea to me.
So we get a little bit in the radio career there. At the same time, now you've got this experience while you were coaching, and fast forward into the coaching part of it. I come in and 99, 2000, you're an assistant coach. Steve Nelson ends up stepping away from the job after the 2000 season. That was a Frozen Four year where we hosted in Superior. And I believe we lost to Plattsburgh in the third place game.
Correct.
St. Thomas ended up getting beat by Norwich in the championship that year. Correct. In 2000.
Yep. Norwich beat us in double overtime.
Yep, they beat us in double overtime in the semis. Yeah, so I'm a healthy scratch that year because I had just moved in as a freshman and I wasn't playing. He got lucky; he got to play right away, and I had to sit for the season. So my sophomore year, I come back, and Steve Nelson is no longer the coach. Dan Stauber takes the head coaching job, opens up an assistant coaching job. Jon Garver is the assistant coach in 2000 to 2001. And he's my assistant coach. That was a pretty fun year and a record-breaking year. There's never been that many wins again.
Nope.
So far at UWS, we had 30 wins that year.
Correct.
Went to the Frozen Four. in RIT at Rochester Institute of Technology. Rochester Institute was undefeated that year until they played Plattsburgh State championship. Now, we're not going to talk about what happened to us because we lost in the semis in the Frozen Four to Plattsburgh State. And we ended up playing the third place game, and we ended up, did we win that game? I think we beat River Falls.
We did. We beat River Falls in that game.
But RIT goes all the way to the end of the year, Puka, and loses the only game of the year to Plattsburgh State.
Yep.
And foreshadowing, we beat them the next year. But we're talking about Garver. Garves, that was your year of coaching, and you were an assistant coach for me for that whole year and a half a year before that, and it was fun. Talk about your years, that year before you ended up taking a break and going off and work for the USHL.
Yeah, that year, that was a fun year. That was a fun year because we just knew we were going to win every game. You know, 30 wins, we lost 4. And the 4 losses were, 3 of the 4 losses were fairly early in the year.
Yeah.
And when we got on a bit of a roll, we won 19 in a row. We were unbeaten, I think 23. And we just knew we were going to win. And it was by how many?
Yeah.
Because that team had so much firepower and they were so good defensively. And you have an All-American goalie. I mean, it was, I would have to think that was probably the best team in school history.
For sure. It was a travesty that we ended up losing in that semifinal game.
Yeah. And that thing there, that was one of those, the planets just aligned for Plattsburgh there.
Well, I got excuses, and you'll never.
I know you got excuses because everybody on that team has excuses.
Oh, you'll never hear Nate Zimski say this excuse, but we had to be the away team, and we were playing at Rochester Technology Institute. The away goalie in the middle of the afternoon has the sun setting in his face because there's a window, and it's in his eyes for 2.
It's a huge window too.
Huge window. He can't even see.
Right.
And he's trying to stop pucks. And at any rate, that's my only.
I came across the news clipping from that game, and it's, we outshot them 17-3 in the first period, and we were down 3-1.
Yeah.
And I remember Plattsburgh's coach at the time, Bob Emery, is a good friend of mine, and he said in the press conference, the best team doesn't always win, and that's what happened today. The best team didn't win this game, but today I have the best player in the country, and it's my goaltender, because he made 40-some saves. Yeah, he made 40-some saves in that game. I think he made close to 100 saves in those 2 games at the Final Four.
Yeah.
And he's the reason they won that championship in 2001.
Well, that was one heck of a run. That
was a great run. It was a lot of fun to be a part of that.
You talked about some of those peach fuzz freshmen your last year, your senior year, the Jeff Galoas, some of those guys that were on the team, those guys were seniors that year. And that Jeff Galoa was one of the best Division III hockey players that I've ever seen in my entire life. He was the most talented player. And I don't know if the kid ever picked up a weight in his entire life. He was so skilled. It was unbelievable. His skating and hands were just ridiculous.
I mean, he carved out a long career overseas too.
Yeah.
I mean, he played over in England for a number of years.
Yeah.
And you look at the guy and you'd never think he was a really good hockey player.
Oh, it's just, he doesn't look like it when you see him in person either. You see him.
That's what I'm saying.
I hate to say it, but if he's not dressed up for a game, he just looks like a bum on campus. He
even looked like a bum when he was dressed up because he had one dress shirt that he never ironed. He had one tie that he tied at the beginning of his freshman year and never untied it.
It just slipped back on.
He cuffed his dress pants with staples.
So
he stapled his pants back up. So
that kind of solidified your coaching career at UWS. You ended up heading out. You took a job with Gino Gasparini in the USHL, and you were out for a couple of years before you made the trip back.
Yep.
What was the job that you did for Gasparini for the USHL?
Yeah, I started as the league marketing coordinator, basically. Cool. And they were going over. They had some turnover coming in the league office that summer, and enter Steve Nelson again. While I was coaching that year, I was also an intern. He was the commissioner of the America West Hockey League, and I was interning with him. And so he decided, that I could do some work for him, and that was great. But then when the office job opened up in the USHL, I just said, okay, I'll throw my name in. While I got offered the job, and at the time, it was for the whopping salary of $18,000 a year, which was more money than I had ever made before. It was more money than I was going to make at the university, so I took it. And I went out there and spent my few years in that area and got to meet some incredible people and really cut my teeth on the administrative side of things.
That
To this
ultimately
day,
ended up getting you
I'm-
into what you're doing now. It ultimately got you into what you're doing now with more administration and more management.
yeah,
The
it played a role for sure. It played
I
a
was
role.
heartbroken because I felt bad. The work that you put in with the team the year before, one of the best teams that we ever had, and then you take a job over at North Dakota, and we bring back and we graduated some unreal players from that 01 team, and thinking, how in the heck are we going to be able to continue on? And we bring in 9-10 freshmen the next year, thinking, okay, this is a rebuilding year. Bang, we lose the first series of the season, and then we go on a run.
Yep.
And in 2002, we win the national championship, and somebody should have got you a ring anyway, just because you had that team the year before.
Nah. Thank you. I appreciate that. But
Well, we got a lot of stories, and man, this could be a 2-hour show if I keep going with more stories, but it was just fun. It was fun being coached by Garv for that year and a half that I had him, and somebody should have had a ring for you, even though you didn't get to hoist that trophy at the end. So you go there, you come back a couple of years later, and you're into the activities department there at UWS, and you've been there ever since.
no.
Or you bounced around?
Yeah, no, I came back in 04, it would have been.
Okay.
My dad passed away, and I wanted to be a little closer to mom, just for, because I wasn't sure how she was going to do, and Grand Forks to Chisholm, 4 hours,
Okay.
Superior to Chisholm, hour and a half. And so if mom has an issue, I can get up there a little bit easier. So I came back and I was running Westman Arena for 2 years.
Cool.
And then when it would have been like July of 2006, out of nowhere, I get a call from Gino again, and he says, we've got some problems, and I know that you can help us on this, and you can help fix this. So what's it going to take? And it really didn't take much. Mom was going to be okay, and I wasn't loving running the rink, so it was a great opportunity for me to jump back into the USHL gig, and get a little more hands-on in the everyday operation of it. And I mean, Gino let me do a lot. He would tell people, I'm just the face, Jon runs the league. And for a couple of years I did. And I stayed there again until 2009 when he retired, and the new commissioner came on and swept all of us old guys out and brought in his new crew. And, that's kind of what led me back here. I got roped into the insurance world, which for some is awesome. It's a great career. For me, it was the worst possible thing. I hated it. I absolutely hated it. And so I was actually getting ready to take a job and go work for the Waterloo Blackhawks in their front office. And that's when enter Steve Nelson, said, we have an opportunity we want to talk to you about. And him and Dr. Erlenbach, the chancellor at the time, said, this is what we're thinking. Are you interested? Well, yeah, of course I am, and ended up being everything that I kind of wanted to do and what I thought was the next step in life. And it worked, and it's, I'm still here. So that was
Actually, the University of Wisconsin Superior again for the third time, right?
Yep. That was my
you've got a career of it.
My third time. And
you work within the activities department, and you are the voice of the Yellow Jackets. And like I said, this is, for those that like to listen, I know TV has great opportunities for people to watch the game, but for those old school folk that like to listen to the game, and they like to listen to a play-by-play guy that is actually going to paint a picture for you, Garves does that. And Garves, for all of intents and purposes, doesn't need an analyst. He doesn't. I've seen it. Like, I have to interrupt them when I'm talking with them, and sometimes I get the elbow, like, don't interrupt. But it's like sometimes follow up a little bit, and he doesn't need it. Like, he can do the whole game. He's used to doing that. But like you said, that is a calling of yours that was
Your passion.
you're great at.
Real
Thank
quick,
you.
running out of time here, so about 30 seconds. I saw on social media you got nominated for some Wisconsin Radio Award. Could you touch on that briefly?
Yeah, I can. The Wisconsin Broadcasters Association has their annual awards, and this radio station submitted a 5-minute clip of me calling a game this year, and I ended up as a finalist, and then ended up being the runner-up. So for the best sports play-by-play, I ended up being second in the state.
Oh,
Awesome.
man, congratulations.
Again, I can't get over the hump.
All right. Anything else to add?
No, I think we summed up one heck of a career in hockey, and now into, where I'm passionate about at UWS, working in that athletic department and part of the media department. And I always look forward to the chance of being able to sit next to you and color up a game for you whenever it happens. So I hope the invite is always still there for me, and I'll let Puka wrap things up.
Yeah, hang tight real quick, Garb. We'll sign off here, but we want to sign off with you personally at the end here. But so that's it for episode 62. Thank you everyone for joining us. Listen, smash the like button. We appreciate that. Tea with Ms. McGill. Find us on Instagram, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. On Twitter, it's just T McGill. And find us under Goat Sports Media on YouTube and Facebook. If you want to contact us personally, Goatsportsmediallc at gmail.com. Of course, we always got merch. Like I said, comment on the new shirts if you like them or not. If you'd like to advertise on the show, please email us. Greatest partners on earth, the Rink Sports Bar and Grill, Iron Range Apparel, Aspire Heating and Control, Iron Range Goalie Academy. Thank you, Jon Garver. For Reed Larson, I am Puka. Get out there and be your dream. You're tuned to the Tea with Ms. McGill Show.